All right, we're moving on now to a story of a very different nature. Top sources are telling CNN News 18 that the centre has returned the file names of 20 different people suggested by the Collegium for appointment as High Court judges. Essentially, the government has asked the Supreme Court Collegium to reconsider 20 files related to the appointments of High Court judges. We'll be bringing you some of those names, but essentially it seems that the government has expressed strong reservations about the recommended names as it sent back the files to the Collegium on November 25th, so 4 days ago. This is from sources that are aware of the procedure to appoint the Supreme Court and the High Court judges. Now, I just want to bring you more details because I believe some sources are being able to share what some of those names are. I will wait for my colleague right now to join us to bring us more details. Ananya, we've given our audiences a quick summary of exactly what's taken place, but I believe what's particularly prominent about that is that one of the names that the government has asked the Supreme Court Collegium to reconsider is that of the advocate Saurabh Kirpal, who has candidly spoken about his identity as a gay person in the past. Can you tell us a little bit more about this, please?
Well, I remember that the centre versus Supreme Court tussle is growing day by day. And in fact, we are seeing how the Supreme Court is bashing the central government over delays in the appointments of Collegium. And now we get to learn from our sources that on November 25th, a file was returned by the central government to the Supreme Court Collegium, clearly stating that 20 names that were sent by, in fact, the Supreme Court Collegium for recommendation for elevation as High Court judges has now been rejected. And has been sent back to, in fact, the Supreme Court Collegium for a reconsideration. These 20 names actually include 9 names which were actually, in fact, this is the second or the third time they are being reconsidered or being sent back by the central government, while 11 other names were fresh appointees, but the first time their names were recommended and have been sent back by the central government. Now, what is very, very clear at this point of time is that 20 names these 20 names also include the name of Saurabh Kirpal. Remember that his elevation was due in 2017 when the High Court Collegium had actually recommended his name to the Supreme Court. And then the Supreme Court also had sent the name to, in fact, to the central government. But then this is almost the second or the third time when Mr. Kirpal's name has been sent back by the central government to the Supreme Court Collegium for a reconsideration. So somewhere or the other, this tussle is growing, and we are seeing the after and the ripple effects of it, where almost 20 names have been sent back by the central government to the Collegium for a reconsideration. Remember that various aspects are taken care of by the central government when it takes up these names for reconsideration. There are IB reports which are actually studied by the central government, and then only such decisions are taken. But at the same point of time, we are also seeing how a tussle has engulfed between the central government and, in fact, the Supreme Court, where on one side we see that the law minister is completely criticizing the Collegium system, and on the other side, the Supreme Court is bashing the central government over delays in fact, Collegium in processing the Collegium recommendation. So somewhere or the other, this seems to be like a ripple effect of what is happening these days. But then 20 names, 20 appointments to the High Court completely on halt since all of these has been sent back to the Supreme Court Collegium.
Okay. All right. Ananya, thank you for bringing us those details.